Does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek recognition to promote my bill, which eliminates any offices of diversity.
Does the gentleman have an amendment at the desk?
Amendment 1465.
The gentleman has an amendment at the desk. The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 33, printed in House Report number 118-142, offered by Mr. Norman of South Carolina.
Pursuant to House Resolution 583, the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Norman, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I cannot believe we're sitting here debating this issue with all the problems this country has. The fact that we're taking up as much time is bizarre to me. The overview of this amendment is the fact that the military's sole purpose is to provide for the defense of our nation. Our military's focus should be the protection of the American people and our freedoms, not liberals' feelings. Therefore, my amendment would eliminate any offices of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the armed forces and the Department of Defense. We should not be spending our hard-earned tax dollars to focus on diversity of ideas. We should be focusing on diversity of ideas and opinions, not races and genders. DEI programs tend to be effective, and the cost to the taxpayer is spending more money that we don't have. To sum this up, a woke military is a weak military. The fact that woke ideology undermines military readiness is in various ways. It undermines cohesiveness by emphasizing differences based on race, ethnicity, and sex. It undermines leadership authority by introducing questions about whether promotion is based on merit or quota requirements. It leads to military personnel serving in specialties and areas for which they are not qualified or ready. And it takes time and resources away from the training of activities and weapons that contribute to the readiness. Mr. Speaker, I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Hawaii seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to claim time in opposition and yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I don't get this whole woke reference, but I'm definitely awake after what I have heard on this floor today. During our markup, we heard repeatedly that the PRC and Russia, even today we heard it, they weren't spending their troops' time on DEI. And I absolutely agree with you. They aren't. The strongest military possible, the one we aim to be, the one we are, is a diverse, equitable, and inclusive one. When you compare our military with those of our competitors, what is immediately striking is the diversity of our service members. Studies have long shown and demonstrated that diversity helps organizations out-innovate, outperform, out-strategize, out-maneuver others. Our diversity is our strength, our commitment to equality, to inclusiveness. That is what makes us American. It is why we have the very best military in the world. But some House Republicans insist on peddling a false choice between DEI and readiness. Why are they so keen on emulating and becoming more like the PRC, more like Russia? Eliminating DEI won't help our military compete more effectively with the PRC. It will, however, undermine the innovative thinking, the cultural competency, the inclusive institutional cultures, the qualitative edge, our ability to win if we need to be agile and ready and lethal. This amendment to terminate DEI offices and personnel and all of the insidious DEI-related amendments we have had to hear and will hear tonight by my Republican colleagues aren't just harmful to our national security, they are a major threat. It is time we set aside the political games that we are seeing and get serious about our national security and stand by our servicemen and women of all backgrounds who have given up so much in defense of our country and to keep all of us safe. I reserve the balance of my time, and I yield a minute to the gentleman from Washington. Oh, sorry.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from South Carolina.
Speaker, I yield 20 to 30 seconds to Chairman Mike Rogers.
Gentleman's recognized.
I thank the gentleman. I'd like to ask my friend and colleague from South Carolina, does he believe his amendment is intended to impact uniformed personnel who work in these offices?
It is.
Not.
It is not, correct.
It is not. That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you. I yield back.
This is not about taking away anybody's career. This is not about trying to harm people. The brave men and women who serve in our military do it because they're family. And the whole point of this bill, this amendment, is to get the recruiting where it needs to be. We're 30% down. As of today, we have spent $1.4 billion on an equity action plan that nobody has any idea where that money is going. And it's high time that we just cut it out and then get back to what the military is supposed to do, which is to protect this nation. And as Eli Crane said, who has been on the front lines, this country is in trouble. This country has other nations that want to do harm to us. And by eliminating this, we'll take a first step in and hopefully getting the safety back at the forefront. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield a minute of time to the good gentleman from Washington State.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is obvious to me that the Republican majority doesn't understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, so I'm going to attempt to explain it this way. We need to be intentional in recruiting from populations that have been historically discriminated against, and I'll use myself as an example. I grew up in a neighborhood that was 95% white. My friends were white, my family was white. I moved into a responsible position. I started to hire people. Typically, you either hire people you know, or you hire people who you know. That's where you get it. I looked around and I was hiring a bunch of white people, all right? That's who I knew. So what I did is I affirmatively reached out to groups that worked with black people or Hispanic people or gay people. And when I had openings, I said, okay, who you got? I don't have those relationships. And I built those relationships. That is what diversity and equity and inclusion is, and it is sorely needed in a country that at least until about 30 or 40 years ago was really racist, okay? To correct that, we have to work with communities, diverse communities, to make sure that we recruit the people. Can I get an additional 15 seconds? Sorry.
I yield the time.
Gentleman's
Diversely.
recognized.
We're not missing our recruitment goals because we're trying to expand the people we are recruiting. We're missing our recruitment goals primarily because of COVID, and also, by the way, because a lot of Republicans are running around talking about how terrible weak our military is. If you'd stop spreading that message, maybe people would believe in our military and join. That's what DEI is. Eliminating it is a huge mistake.
Gentlelady from Hawaii.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how much time do we have remaining?
Gentlelady has 1.5 minutes remaining.
Okay, thank you. I reserve my time, the balance of my
Gentlelady
time.
reserves. Gentleman from South Carolina.
Speaker, how much time do I have?
Gentleman has 2 minutes remaining.
Well, I would say we do have a difference of opinion of what diversity is. I believe diversity is diversity of new ideas. Diversity is not based on your race or your ethnicity. And that's where we are in this country now. We hire the finest to go into the military, not because of the color of their skin, and really not because of their sexual preference. This is just continuing to try to claim everyone is victimized in this country. Well, I'm sorry. It's time for us to put the priorities in place. This administration is being more divisive. It is more concerned about ensuring cadets use the right pronouns. How stupid is that? How uncaring is that about the men that are serving? This administration is more concerned about the government forcing our military to take shots. That's not their role. That's why some of the recruiting is down. But yes, it's down. We're weakened. Why do you think China's doing what they're doing? Why do you think Russia's doing what they're doing? This would have never happened under a strong administration led by Donald Trump. And this administration, you don't keep peace by weakness. And this is why the purpose of my amendment will strengthen the military. And that's my first and number one goal, which is the security of this country. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield a minute of time to the gentleman from Virginia.
How much time?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yes.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the amendment. And first, let me just say our diversity is our strength. The diversity of this country is our strength. The diversity of our military is our strength. And I keep hearing the other side of the aisle say that DEI and critical race theory are about assigning characteristics to people based on the color of their skin. That is not what DEI or critical race theory are. What they are a recognition that for 350 years, from the founding of this country in Jamestown through the civil rights movement, that our laws, our social mores assumed different characteristics based on the color of your skin and made Black people second-class citizens. DEI is designed to address that and to ensure that our military, which kept my uncles from serving in combat because of the color of their skin, make sure their children and grandchildren want to serve in that military.
Gentlelady's time has
because
expired.
it is a welcoming and inclusive place. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. Gentlelady from Hawaii.
Mr. Chair, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady has 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
Gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the 30 seconds to my good friend from California, Congressman LaMaffa.
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you. No, I hear nonsense. I call nonsense. Our strength is not our diversity. Our strength is in our unity. We take diverse ideas, diverse talents, and we put them together. Whether you're talking an offensive football team, where you have all different types and sizes of people with speeds and talents, they all come together as a team. They all start to play at the same time. Same thing for our military. We have the Navajo code talkers. They weren't worried about what color or gender or whatever they were. We had all sorts of people coming together as a team. Our military is forced together in recruiting and in training to become a team. You don't worry about what everybody looks like or this or that or the other. That's what we have when we have unity, not diversity, which is divisive.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time for the gentleman from South Carolina has expired. Gentlelady from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In closing, I just have one question to ask. What about us scares you? My grandfather, my father-in-law, my brother, they all fought and risked their lives for this country. Yet the sacrifices made by so many who feel marginalized, our communities of color, simply pale in comparison to the hate and fear that drives this obsession with DEI. First and foremost, we just heard that if under a strong administration like the Trump administration, you would not have this. However, DEI is not you. In 2020, the Trump administration established a defense board and a defense advisory committee on diversity and inclusion to increase diversity and ensure equitable opportunity across all ranks. If you want to be more like China, if you want to be more like Russia, keep this up. I don't want to be like them. DEI is necessary. I oppose this resolution.
Expired.
Thank you. I yield back the remainder of my time.
All time for debate has expired. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from South Carolina. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
A recorded vote has been requested. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment by the gentleman from South Carolina will be postponed. It is now in order to consider the amendment number 34 printed in the House Report 118-142. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Speaker, to propose amendment 1464.
The gentleman has an amendment at the desk. The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 34, printed in House Report number 118-142.